Welcome. It's now time to take your multivitamin, soak your oats for tomorrow morning, and grab your whittling stick.
Because it's time to talk Tull to me.
Talk Tull to me, talk Tull to me, talk Tull to me, talk Tull to me.
I may actually use that as the intro music for this week.
Welcome back to another episode of Talk Tull to Me. On this podcast, Nick McGill and myself, Omen Said, take an extraordinary and extraordinarily self-indulgent voyage. Week by week, song by song, Nick and I will talk and talk and talk Tull to you about every single track that prog rock band Jethro Tull has ever recorded.
Chronologically, week by week, we will do the next track in line, and you will eventually learn to love us. So this week, we have the third song off of the second album.
This is kind of a big week. I'm not gonna lie. I'm feeling the pressure on this one. I'm feeling intimidated by the material.
Yeah, you could very easily say this is a classic.
You could, and in fact, we will.
Omen, what are we listening to this week?
This week, we're listening to Bourée.
Although Bourée is legit the opening and closing music, so it's just going to be
more of the same. Yeah,
more of the same.
Let's have a review of what that is. Wow.
When I'm on a Tull binge.
I'm so glad you clarified.
When I'm on a Tull binge, I'm going to be honest, sometimes Bourée is very easy to kind of zone out on.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, and I have a small theory about that.
But when I like really paying attention to it,
yeah,
man, that is a good song. It's nice. It's just so pleasant.
Well, I think that this is one of the songs that is more famous in terms of the whole Jethro Tull scope.
Sure.
And as such, we've all heard it a lot of times. I mean, I think that I've heard this song more than a lot of the other songs. It's one that you associate so strongly with Jethro Tull. It's sort of like one of those big watermarks in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So now I feel like I'm like, oh yeah, I know what that is. It's that thing that they do.
Yeah.
I'm thinking back to the first time that I ever heard it when I was like 17, and it blew my mind.
Likewise, yeah.
Because it's so different than anything else that I had ever heard at that point. And really, it really is unique. So, shall we break it down and let's just get down to the brass tacks of what we actually just listened to?
Sure. Yeah.
So, Bourée is obviously Ian Anderson's interpretation of Johann Sebastian Bach's fifth movement from the Suite in E minor for lute, also named Bourée or Bourée in E minor. And the Bourée was a type of dance that originated in France and was a popular social dance form and used in theatrical ballets during the time of Louis XIV.
Yeah, so it's not named after the hat, like the French hat. It's spelled differently. It's named something.
Are you referring
completely.
to a beret?
Bourée? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, it is in fact different.
Although I do recall a few times seeing them live that Ian Anderson would refer to this song as Black Bourée.
Yeah, well, he's just,
Yeah. He's Ian Anderson.
Who knows what's coming out of his face half the time. That is I've actually never thought about that as an association. That's really funny.
Flute wind. That's what's coming out of his face.
Yes, yes, it is. So the Bourée in E minor was one of the more popular pieces, nowadays of J.S. Bach, and it's played by a lot of guitarists. As a lute piece, it translates really well to the guitar. And this isn't alone in the universe of rock bands doing references to classical pieces.
Yeah.
And there are, in fact, of course, other rock bands that have covered this exact song.
Many.
But I think we can safely say that Jethro Tull was the first.
Probably. I think that's pretty safe. I mean, who would have been so ballsy to do it before Tull?
Well, I think there's some examples of people who've done it since.
Right. And yes, you can say there's still homages to Bach, but it does have to be acknowledged that, yeah, it's there's a nod to Tull in someone covering Bourée.
Well, even there is a reference to Bakerloo, which is a British blues rock group. They did their take on the same tune, which they titled "Drivin' Backwards." In July of 1969, whereas this was recorded in April of 69.
Oh, wow.
Whoa, just skating in.
Just beat him out, and that's why this is Talk Tull to me and not Talk Bakerloo to me. Bitch Bakerloo to
me. Yeah. So I don't even know what to say about this. It's just so iconic. I feel like it's something that I take for granted now.
Yeah, I think so, and I think your explanation of it earlier makes a lot of sense, that we were blown away when we had first heard it, but now it has become so staple, essentially.
Right.
That it's on all the best hits. We've heard it however many times. It's the song that leads into the great big flute solo at any time they're live.
Right.
I think they redid it for the Christmas album.
They
if I'm
did.
not mistaken.
Yeah.
We've heard it 6 Ways to Sunday, so it's easy to not pay attention to it.
I'm just thinking back to like when I had I think it was the Best Of album. That was probably the first album that I heard this on. When, I'm like remembering when I was like 16, 17, listening to this song in my bedroom, and I just felt, this probably says more about me than about the music, so cool. Like, listening to this just made me feel so cultured and like so cool, man. Like,
yeah.
And then I would leave my room, and that hastily erected illusion would crumble. But for that one moment, it really did something for me.
It was very transcendental for me.
Ah, yeah.
Because I didn't hate classical music as a kid,
okay.
But this was something completely different and new, and it does have a lot like I think we mentioned it about Round is that it has a kind of a trance-like, just a steady forward motion to the song.
Yeah.
That I can imagine, and I imagine it's just like this when people like drop acid and listen to Pink Floyd.
I think it's exactly the same.
Neither of which I've ever done.
I think these are very comparable experiences, and we are the exact people who can talk intelligently about that comparison. But it's interesting that you didn't. It sounds like you didn't really have a particular affinity for classical music growing up.
No, not necessarily. I didn't hate it.
Right, but it wasn't your go-to thing.
No, certainly not.
Whereas for me, classical music was sort of like what I grew up listening to, and Jethro Tull was kind of my first real entry into the world of rock.
Mm. Well, your mom listened to public radio a lot, right?
Yes, and John Denver.
Well, there you go. Folk and public radio. Boom.
Yeah, exactly.
And thus you were born.
And thus I was born. So that was also very interesting for me, hearing this take on a classical piece and making like just getting so getting so loose with it. Made me feel like unbuttoning my top button of my shirt. Not that I did, of course, but
I would never do that.
made me think about it.
Do you recall having heard the actual Bourée prior to this song?
That's a good question.
Like, was there a moment of like, oh my God, I know this song?
I think so. Yeah, I think that I had heard it. I don't have a distinct memory of having a relationship with that song previous to hearing the Jethro Tull cover, but I do remember listening to this song and having the aha moment of like, oh, wait a minute, this is a piece that I have heard done in a new way.
Yeah. If I recall, I didn't know that it was a classical song.
Oh, interesting.
I just knew that it sounded differently and it had that different feel to it.
Wow.
I certainly knew it was an homage to that style, but
you didn't know it was
an actual classical
right
piece. Yeah, no, if I remember correctly, I didn't. It took me a while.
Huh, interesting. So an interesting bit of the recording history here. They they worked on this album for a couple of months, and apparently this was the track that gave them the most trouble, and they were unable to produce a single full take that they were satisfied with.
Yeah.
And so what you hear when you listen to this recording is actually kind of a Frankenstein version of several different takes that the producer cobbled together, and then Ian Anderson did some touch-up work on.
Right.
Which I find so interesting, because it's, I mean, that being the case, it's an extraordinary monument to the editing skills of their producer, of Terry Ellis.
Yeah.
Because it does come off so smoothly. And there's one thing that I want to just microscope in on for a second here, and that is Glenn Cornick's bass solo here. I really think that it's really funny, like when you listen to the actual lute piece, there's this very a lot of what makes it so good is the interplay between the treble melody and the bass line, which is all played on the same instrument, of course. And here that sort of is split up between the flute doing the treble stuff and the bass. But I think that the bass, Cornick's work on this song really makes it what it is. And then that crazy bass solo that comes in the middle there is unlike any other bass solo that I've ever heard in music. He's playing chords on the bass. It sounds like it's a guitar. It sounds like it's a guitar. It sounds like it's a guitar solo, but he's doing it on the bass, and it's so unusual. It's so unique.
Right, yeah. I didn't even think about that. Now I got to go back and listen to it again. I wonder how much of a stretch this was for them. I mean, because it seems none of them are really classically trained. And maybe that's an explanation as to why it took them so long to get it all down.
Yeah, I think it must have been a difficult piece to play. I mean, even under the best of scenarios, because it's not only classical. It's not only got a classical bass, but they're also doing it in this kind of jazz style,
right?
Which they were moving away from at this time as a band.
True. But it to me, Bourée does not. I think Bourée would feel out of place in This Was.
I agree, but it's definitely, they're trying to do something very unusual, which is like take this classical piece and swing it.
Yeah.
And it's hard. I think it's hard.
Now that I think about it, honestly, it feels kind of out of place in Stand Up as well.
It's such a unique piece. I think it would feel out of place on any album.
I think it fits on the Christmas album. And that wasn't being facetious. I genuinely do think that.
Oh, you're you're not banishing it.
No. But I think it could fit on Aqualung. I think
Yeah,
it could
I guess
fit on
so.
Aqualung. There's a darkness to it.
It certainly holds its own anywhere.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's not a sticking out like a sore thumb. It's more just, oh, look at this pretty rock on this beach of just slightly less pretty rocks.
Yes.
Boy, that was oof.
Wow.
just pros at the metaphors.
It's great, yeah. I want to know where the idea came from. Were they sitting around one night and Ian Anderson was like, I think we should do a cover of that lute piece. That's not how he sounds.
Yeah, right? Why? Because he wasn't classically trained. So it's not like he had other pieces of classical that he was really doing.
Working on.
Yeah.
Or maybe he always just liked the piece.
That's entirely possible. Because even with Abrams, I mean, there didn't feel to be a classical feel. It was more classic jazz. Unless maybe, who came in? Mick. No, Mick was the one that left. Who came in after Mick?
Martin Barr.
There's a cat meowing. Oh, hang on.
Meowton Barr.
That's why I have a sound booth.
That's funny.
Unless Martin Barr came in with some sort of background. It's all really speculation unless we were to sit down with Mr. Anderson and have a good old chat about Bourée.
Has he returned our emails yet?
I've been using his pager number about a couple times a day, so I'm hoping, and I'm putting 911 in there, so he should call back thinking it's an
That's
emergency.
great. Yeah, that's great.
We'll see.
We should. Never mind. No. Nope. Nope. How do you spell libel? So
What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say we should serve him a summons, and be like, you have to come testify to like some crime.
Only if we write it in crayon. Would we be safe?
What else can we say about Bourée? It's one of their staple live pieces.
It is. It's also one of those, and I think it's due to several factors, but it's one of those that if you were to play it for someone and say, guess this artist, I'm not entirely sure they would be guessing Jethro Tull if they'd never heard it. It's hard to separate because we know it so well and we've been listening to Tull for forever.
Yeah.
I could see how it wouldn't be construed as a Tull song.
I guess so, but on the other hand, you've got all that flutter tonguing in there and the flute grunting technique.
That's true. Bach started that, and then Ian Anderson picked it up.
Das Flutengrunten.
That's right. That you just said something very offensive, actually, in German.
So there go our German audiences.
All 9 of them. That was
9.
terrible.
Did you get? Oh, that was like a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we've reached the end of the flute here.
Do you want to rethink that one? You
want
to workshop that?
I think it's time to shake the spit out of this mouthpiece.
There we go. Does a flute have a mouthpiece?
Well, it has a mouthpiece, yeah.
But it's all connected, though. Like, a mouthpiece to me feels like it's a separate thing,
Well, it is a separate piece. Generally, a flute breaks down into 3 sections.
That's true. I forgot about that.
There's the tailpiece, the body, and the headpiece.
It's how you won over your girlfriend talking about the anatomy of a flute, huh?
Wow. I do want to remind listeners that I am the resident flute expert on this podcast by virtue of the fact that I played the flute in high school.
It's true. Not even all.
Yep.
Not even all the way through high school. Didn't you stop near the end?
I stopped for a little while when I broke my hand, but no, I continued to play the flute into college.
When did you break your hand?
Right before an All-State audition that I was really afraid of. It's one of the most conveniently timed injuries of my life. Yeah. I was like, Miss Walters, I'm so sorry I can't do the audition because my hand is broken.
Oh man, how did the car run over your hand? I thought I saw a kitten. No kitten wasn't there. My hand stayed. It's a bummer.
Yeah. And let me tell you, it was hard to steer the car while I was reaching underneath for the kitten.
just put a cinder block on there. That's what all the smart people do.
That's not enough to break your hand. Oh, on the gas pedal.
There
I
you
see.
go.
No, I broke it falling off of a railing. I was doing a cool trick where I leapt from a hillside onto a railing and landed on the railing with one foot. And I would have landed it fine, but the railing had a shoddy connection to its concrete base. And so it wobbled and I wibbled and then I fell and put out my left hand to catch my fall, which is what you're not supposed to do.
You're supposed to use your face.
Yes. Yes, or the face of someone else.
Right, yeah.
But I put my weight down on my little pinky finger, and snap goes the weasel.
So it was just the pinky then?
Yeah, but that's one of the more important flute playing fingers.
Did you try to catch yourself with just the pinky?
No, I just was reaching back for the ground.
So you early parkoured and you biffed it.
Yeah. I pre-parkoured.
I was doing this cool trick where I jumped off a railing and broke my hand, and I did it perfectly.
I was 10 points. They were like, "Wow, if only that was repeatable more than once every 6 months." Well, great. So, Nick,
Omen,
if this song, if Bourée was a cocktail, which cocktail would it be?
I'm not super versed in many cocktails.
Okay. Way to cop out.
No, I got it.
Okay.
Asshole.
What do you think?
I got it. It would be any classic cocktail that would normally have something that would have like vodka.
Yeah.
But it has gin in instead.
Oh, okay.
That's it. It's a take on the classic with just enough differentiation and just enough flavor to make it different.
Yeah. Wow.
And something that you can go back to. You know, it's not terribly offensive.
Right.
Do you disagree? You seem incredulous.
No, I'm just trying to imagine the drinks that those could be. So it'd be like a vodka and vitamin water, but with gin instead of vodka.
Not necessarily a classic cocktail.
Well,
martinis.
A martini, a gin martini. Yeah, sure.
Tom Collins.
I've never met him.
Song for Tom Collins, Jeffrey and Me.
Yeah, yes, I was just thinking that.
And that's it. That's it for my cocktail knowledge.
Great. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to leave you here, and we will come back and pick you up next week. And so here's some snacks to tide you over.
Don't feed the squirrels.
Don't. If you have any trouble, don't call us.
We'll be here. We'll come back. I promise.
We'll be here.
Just going down to the corner store to get some smokes.
Not like my daddy.
So, Omen, next week, what are we going to listen to? And what are we going to talk about?
Ooh. Well, we are going to listen to the fourth song on Stand Up, which is Back to the Family. And we are going to talk about the fourth song on the album Stand Up, which is called Back to the Family.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I actually, that's one of my favorite songs. So, ladies and gentlemen, until then, stay warm, stay hydrated, and stay positive.
In the meantime, everyone, do the thing. Turn the Bourée to a hooray and give us 5 stars. Rate, review, subscribe, the whole thing. Come on.
I'm Omen Said.
And I'm Nick McGill.
And we are Feckless Momes.
And this is Talk Tull to Me. Oh, hey there. Talk Tull to Me is a proud member of the Feckless Momes audio network.